Wake up, Lobos. I'm Mr. Baker, and I'm here with.
Ayani,
Haley, Lila,
Jaime, Gilari.
In this episode of Wake Up Lobos, we'll be telling scary stories. Up first, Lila is going to tell us the story of the girl who stood on a grave.
a couple of friends are at a party one night. A girl of boys tell a girl that if you stand on a grave, the dead person buried in it will grab you and kill you. The girl does not believe them, but decides to try it on her way home. A boy gives her his knife before she leaves the party, telling her to place the knife in the grave. As proof that she was there, the girl stood on the grave and sticks the knife in the ground. She gets off and starts walking away, but feels that she is being held back and screams. The next day, some people from the party are passing by the grave site and find the girl dead. It was only the knife holding her skirt. She had died of a fright.
Spooky. Up next is Ayani with the story The White Stained Evening Gown.
A young man invited a young woman to a formal dance, but she was very poor, and she could not afford to buy the evening gown she needed for such an occasion. Maybe you could rent a dress, said her mother. So she went to a pawnshop not so far from where she lived. There she found a white stained evening gown in her size. She looked at it and she was able to rent it for very little. When she arrived at the dance with her friend, she was so attractive, everyone wanted to meet her. She danced again and again, and she was having a wonderful time. But then she began to feel dizzy and faint, and she asked her friend to take her home. I think I danced too much, she told him. When she got home, she laid down on her bed. The next morning her mother found out that her daughter had died. The doctor did not understand what caused her death, so she had the coroner perform an autopsy. The coroner found out that she had been poisoned by embalming fluid. It had stopped her blood from flowing. There were traces of fluid on her dress. He decided it had entered her skin when she was dancing. The the pawnbroker said he bought the dress from an undertaker's helper. It had been used in a funeral for other young women, and the helper had stolen it just before she was buried.
Up next, Kilari will tell the story called The Attic.
A man named Rupert lived with his dog in a house deep in the woods. Rupert was a hunter and a trapper. The dog was a big German shepherd named Sam. Rupert was raised Sam from a pup. Almost every morning Rupert went hunting and Sam stayed behind him and guarded the house. One morning as Rupert was checking his traps, he got the feeling that something was wrong at home. He hurried back as fast as he could, but when he got there, he found that Sam was missing. He searched the house and the woods nearby, but Sam was nowhere to be found.
Jaime is next with his story The Pale Lady.
Lucy Morgan was an artist. She had spent a week painting in a small country town and decided that the next day she would move on. She would go to a village called Kingston. But that night Lucy Morgan had a strange dream. She dreamed that she was walking up a dark carved staircase and entering a bedroom. It was an ordinary room except for two things. The carpet was made of large squares that looked like trapdoors, and each of the windows has fastened shut with big nails that stuck up out of the wood. In her dream, Lucy Morgan went to sleep in that bedroom. During the night, a woman with a pale face and black eyes and long hair came into her room. She leaned over the bed and whispered, "This is this is an evil place. Flee as you can." When the woman touched her arm to hurry along, Lucy Morgan awake from her dream and shrieked. She laid awake the rest of the night trembling. So Lucy Morgan went to Dorset. Someone told her she could find a room in a house at the top of the hill. It was a pleasant-looking house, and the lady there, a plump, motherly woman, was as nice as she could be. "Let's look at the room," she said. "I think you will like it." In the morning she told her landlady that she had decided not to go in Kingston after all. "I can't tell you why," she said, "but I just can't bring myself to go there." "Then why don't you go to Dorset?" the landlady said. "It's a pretty town, and isn't too far." They walked up a dark carved staircase like the one in Lucy's dreams. In these old houses, the staircases are all the same, Lucy thought, but the landlady opened the door to the bedroom. It was the bedroom in her dream, with the same carpet that looked like trapdoors, and the same windows fastened with big nails. "This is just a coincidence," Lucy told herself. "How do you like it?" the landlady asked. "I'm not sure," she said. "Well, take your time," the landlady said. "I'll bring up some tea while you think about it." Lucy sat on the bed staring at the trapdoors and big nails. Soon there was a knock on the door. "It's the landlady with tea," she thought. But it wasn't the landlady. It was a woman with pale face and black eyes and the long hair. Lucy Morgan grabbed her things and fled.
Up next, Haley will tell the story The Clown Statue.
A young teen is babysitting for a family that is very, very wealthy, in a large mansion filled with a huge number of rooms and a vast number of interesting antiques and artifacts. Strangely, though, the father mentions to the girl that once the children are put to sleep for the night, the girl should only go to the basement and not spend her time in any other rooms of the house. She could watch television down there, and was free to do anything else in the basement, but the rest of the house was off limits. She goes to the basement once the children are in bed, but quickly notices a large clown statue in the corner of her room. It appears to be staring at her. She continues to watch her show, but can't shake the feeling that the statue is following her around the room with its eyes. She puts a blanket over the statue, eventually in an effort to make herself feel more comfortable, and then telephones the father of the children to ask if she can go and move to another room of the house, because she's so freaked out by the clown. "You need to leave now. We don't own a clown statue. The children have been telling us they've been seeing a clown in the room in the night, and we thought they were having nightmares. Take the children and get out." The young girl hangs up the phone, terrified. She turns around, but the statue is gone, leaving only the blanket on the floor.
Our final story is The Wardrobe. Two sisters were spending the summer at their grandparents' house. When the sun was shining, they had plenty of fun swimming in the lake out front, exploring the woods out back, and playing all sorts of games in the gardens. They had the full run of the place, except for one room at the back of the house. One week toward the end of their stay, there was a terrible thunderstorm. The girls were forced to stay inside all day. They played games, read books, and made crafts, but quickly became bored. Their grandparents' house was large, old, and had many cracks and crevices, the perfect place for a game of hide and seek. The younger sister wanted to hide first. She ran off to find a hiding place, while her sister covered her eyes and began to count. 1, 2, 3. The older sister heard her siblings' footsteps running up the stairs and along the hallway to the back of the house. 48, 49, 50. Ready or not, here I come. She opened her eyes and went in search of her sister. The girl searched every room and looked under every bed. She combed through every closet and threw open every curtain, but her sister was nowhere to be found. Finally, she reached the forbidden room. She reached out and grasped the doorknob. It slowly turned. The door creaked open. In that room, she was shocked to find nothing. Well, almost nothing. The only item in the room was an old, tall, carved wooden cupboard covered in cobwebs. It was unremarkable in every way, except that the door was slightly open. The girl ran over laughing and swung the door open. I found you, she yelled, but the cupboard was empty. She leaned in, and as she did, a cold, icy hand reached out from the back of the cupboard and grabbed her wrist. She let out a scream and tried to escape as the hand pulled her further into the cupboard. The girl's sister heard her screams and ran into the room. She looked on in horror as her sister began to disappear into the cupboard. The little sister was quick on her feet. She ran to the cupboard, grabbed her sister's legs, and pulled with all her might. She pulled her sister out of the cupboard, and the two girls ran from the room, slamming the door behind them. The next day, when they looked into the room, the wardrobe was gone. Thank you for joining us on this spooky episode of Wake Up Lobos. Until next time.
Wake up, Lobos!
Lobos! Wake up, Lobos!